Hey, Mike Amundsen here, again, back talking about designing and building great web APIs from my book coming from Pragmatic Publishing. So in this series, I want to be talking about the DARRT library, the actual build library that I use. I use this thing called the DARRT library, which is the Data Actions, Resources, Representations, and Transitions library. So it's actually how I build all of my exploratory APIs. You can find another, if you just look at the bug at the top, you can find another story that'll explain more about how the library works itself. I want to focus on one part of that, and that is the transitions part of it. So transitions are actually how we tell developers or even machines what's possible and what's not in an API. So if I use just a real simple example here, and I want to look at, say, one record in the system, and I just call that record. So here I've got an ID, I've got some fields here, but I don't really know too much about what's possible. Can I filter on any of this stuff? Can I edit? Can I add? And if I can, what arguments do I need to pass? What properties are available? So what actions and what properties are available, and what are the associated URLs and methods? Now, I could go look this up somewhere in documentation, but it's actually a lot smarter if I actually emit this as part of the output as well, because then it's right there in front of somebody and they can take a look at it. Turns out there are lots of formats that do that. Uber, Mason, Siren, HAL, and one that I work on called Collection plus JSON, and the one that I'll show you here called Forms plus JSON, which is a really simple format. So I'm actually going to do the same thing. I'm just going to say, give it a header, and it's going to be Forms plus JSON. And I know this is going to take a while, so I'm actually going to just spool this out. So I'm making the exact same call, but I'm just saying, I want you to give it to me. I want you to represent it to me in this Forms JSON format. So now I get a lot more information. So you can see it starts at the top with this API. Metadata is available. And as I go through it, I'll get a bunch of links that I didn't have before. So I have the self link, the home link, the list, the filter, and actually filter is the one I'm really most interested in here. So this filter actually explains to me how I can filter data. It says I can filter on two fields, status and family name. So now when I get this information back, I could get a lot of extra details about what's possible and what's not. So I'm actually going to break this off here because I want to do that same thing. I want to actually do a little bit of filtering. So I'm just going to do a filter and say family name. It's got MO in it somewhere. So see what I get. Sure enough, I got a record. So that family name Monk is on the list. So that's really very helpful. Now, how does that actually come out? Again, I'm just doing the application JSON version. So how does it look in real life? What does that record really look like? So let's do another call here. I'm just going to call to, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to call to the list using this format. And let's see, let's use the query tool. Whoops, a little fast here. Let's go back. Let's see, clear this out. Use the query tool. And let's say API links. And that's going to be an array. Let's actually do a little select where the ID is actually set to filter. So I actually want to see that filter record that's emit. So I'm actually going to take the whole output, but then filter it down just to this one record here. Oops. What did I screw up here? Let's filter, filter, filter. Oh, I get it. Yep, it's exciting. Got my quotes backwards. All right, so there's my filter transition, my individual transition. So it tells me the name, the href to use, and use get and the possible properties. So that's pretty good. But it turns out I know that my API supports more than just status and family name. For example, it supports filtering on email. So let's actually tell users that it supports that feature by going into the transition library itself and finding the filter record. Here's my filter, and just adding a new argument, a new property to this collection. So I know it's email. And we just give no default values here. We're just going to give a blank for now. So I've just added email as another possible property in the filter statement. So now when I go back and I do the same thing and just look at that filter record, now I see that I've got email as a possible argument. And turns out, sure enough, it is possible for me to actually do that. So if I go back and just do this again, clear this up here, curl localhost filter email has X's in it. And sure enough, I get a record back. So this idea of transitions lets you actually make modifications in a lot of really, really interesting ways. And that's the importance of using a transition library. It actually tells developers and eventually tells machines. I can write a machine that understands this information as well. So that gives you a little sense of what transitions are like. Hopefully that makes sense. There are a lot more screencasts in the series. Look for the bug at the top. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and you'll get more and more about how to design and build great web APIs. There you go.